But one day, you will stand before its decrepit gate without really knowing why.
How's it going, everybody? Happy New Year. For those that don't know, I am Retro. Today I'm bringing you the top 5 worst boss fights in Dark Souls 2. This is not completely based on the fights themselves, but also will take into account things such as the run up to the boss, numbers involved with the fight, as well as environments and the arenas themselves. First up on the list is Smelter Demon, also just Iron Keep in general. This place was an absolute nightmare. Just the mobs of enemies, the environment itself was at times very narrow, and you're trying to get by enemies and things like that. Definitely one of my least favorite areas, but also the most visually appealing areas at the same time. So it was beautiful, but also terrible. And simply just that area alone made that fight just not worth it to me. The fight itself is actually not too bad, but Iron Keep is just the worst. Next up is Thronies, Throne Watcher, Throne Keeper. I don't even remember what they both are, but the Thronies. Both of these enemies are incredibly aggressive, and both have what can be considered at times longer range weapons. They aren't necessarily shooting you with things, which I believe the Watcher and Defender is what they're called. I believe the Watcher has the ability to shoot spells, but their swords, their blades do have very large hitboxes as well with certain moves. Beyond that, the possibility that one that you take down can potentially get re-healed all the way back to full health just makes this a very tedious fight, and has to be done in a way that keeps that in mind and knows that is going to be taking place. So for me, unfortunately, like I got one of them down the first time and had to learn the hard way, and it was pretty rough. The run to it, not too bad. It's just a straight path. Don't have to deal with any enemies. The arena itself is pretty cool, but can be treacherous. There is a ledge that, once again, I had to learn the hard way that is there. But yeah, that is definitely gonna be on the list. Number 3 on the list is Mytha, the Baneful Queen. This one is another one that kind of comes down to the arena and environment. The run up is pretty awful. Many different enemies, and depending on how you have gone through that particular area, also dealing with certain effects too. In this fight, if you don't do certain things within the environment, going to the windmill and basically setting it ablaze, you will be fighting this boss in poison, and as she is sitting in said poison, she regens health. So it's pretty terrible if you don't do that given activity within the area. Once that is completed, this fight is really not that bad. I opted to do this fight with a summons just so that I could get through the area leading up to it, but very quickly realized once I got into the fight without the poison that it was pretty quick and painless. So number 2 on the list is going to be Burnt Ivory King. Another one of those unfortunate fights that in and of itself is really cool, but the lead up to it is just terrible. If you have not tracked down 3 knights to assist in that lead up, I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure people have done it, but it's awful. I think I went in initially with just one backup knight, and I can't imagine having to get through that solo and then on to the actual boss fight itself, where you need heals and resources. But yeah, once again, it's unfortunately a fight by itself that is pretty awesome, both visually and combat wise, but that lead up, that run up to it, and the numbers that you're dealing with in that fight are, for me, what takes away from that overall experience. Last up on the list, number 1 is going to be the Gank Squad. Afflicted Grave Robber, Ancient Soldier Varg, and Sarah the Old Explorer. These 3 are the final, or one of the bosses in the Sunken King DLC, and they are just awful. You have 2 that are super aggressive and will come straight for you as soon as you enter the fog gate. And then you have 1 that's sitting in the back shooting arrows at you, which do significant damage. They all do significant damage, but you do as well. And it's one of those things that it's just I can never wrap my head around a multi-enemy boss fight being good. I guess they're it's all about quantity over quality, and this one in particular is all that. You are able to get in backstabs, which do help with the fight quite a bit, but beyond that, it's a terrible lead up with poison and curse effects along the way. Many enemies. The environment and arena itself is very narrow, and it's just it's difficult to navigate and do that fight where it's located. Now, those are the top 5 actual picks. There are some dishonorable mentions as well. Ava, the king's pet, is one of them for just being a stupid freaking invisible son of a bitch. That's one of those fights where, to me, like, the fight itself wasn't too terrible, but the fact I was almost forced to get an item to be able to engage in the fight made it terrible. Demon of Song is another one. This one, the lead up itself, you are getting spells thrown at you left and right. There's big armored knights, there's big trolls, there's creatures in the water that are chasing after you. It's and then on top of all of that, you also get with Scholar, you get all of the invaders as well that like to make their way into your world. So that was a terrible fight, just in the sense of the run up. Sir Alon is another one. Horrendous run up, and unless you figure out a particular pathing to get to that fight, it can really weigh down the experience of that fight. And luckily we did find a path that worked and was fairly consistent, and so we weren't going in with 2-3 flasks down. Yeah, it was pretty awful to begin with, for sure, and I think many people would agree that that's one of the trickier runs in this title. Vendrick was another one, having to go and track down certain items in order to make that fight manageable. Just another really frustrating element for me personally that just took away from that ending fight in and of itself. So yeah, I don't know if I could say that I fully enjoyed my playthrough of Dark Souls 2, but I did enjoy it enough that I am going to be coming out with a top 5 best boss fights video as well. So be on the lookout for that. If you've watched through the video, I super appreciate it. Do me a favor and hit the sub button, hit the bell so you get notified of new videos. And other than that, I will catch you guys in the next one.